let us start our second sip talk. So I'm sure that as a sibling of a specially able child, you may come from a family who A might not have been aware about future planning, or B, they were aware they took the right steps in future planning, but probably you were not involved as a sibling in the process because probably you were growing up. Or in some cases, in certain special circumstances, as a sibling, you were the main caregiver. So, hence, you're aware of future planning. So, regardless of the background you are from, today in our SIP talk, our team Sarthi is here to give you an overview about future planning for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I would like to invite our first speaker for today, Shreya Jain. Shreya Jain has a specially abled brother, Subrat, and Shreya has had the opportunity to spend 3 months with the Global Autism Project at New York. And post coming back, she is now the founder of Reservoir Neurodiversity, which is an organization that develops creative and long-term solutions for families with special needs. So I'm going to add her to this conversation. Hi,
Hey,
Shreya.
hi Priyanka, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well.
Okay, so to begin with, to give a background to our audience, what are the different future planning tools that as siblings we should be aware of?
Um, so I think this depends from like different age groups, different tools are available. But if I have to talk about long-term solutions where you have to make sure that our siblings remain safe in cases of emergencies or in the case of a caretaker not being around, then I think for financial security, the important tools are having a will and trust in place. And I think the most important thing is having a legal guardianship in place so that there is at no point is there a confusion on who is the right person to take decisions on behalf of our siblings. And I think apart from that, just having your financial planning in order to prevent financial misuse and to make sure that the lifestyle that he or she has right now is continued and maintained in a proper manner.
So to sum up, can I say so you have a trustee or a legal to be a legal guardianship, or you have the financial planning that is preparing a deed or something like a will, sort of it.
So the five main tools are having a will, a trust, a legal guardianship, your financial planning tools, and I would say a UDID card, right, which is your unique disability
Okay.
identity card. Why I say that's important because tomorrow, I think right now is a really good time. It's a very strange time for all of us. And let's see how all of these five tools can be applied right now, right? Let's say if
Right.
we were to explain to our society members or our neighbors or um, say a police officer of why our siblings cannot uh, practice social distancing or quarantine on their own. Having these documentations is very important, right? Because a UDID card, which is like an Aadhaar, will very clearly explain that the brothers or sisters are differently able, right? Which is why they need help, or which is why the same rules may not be applicable to them. A legal guardianship would help in saying that I am the right person to make this decision, right? This is my call. He or she may not understand, but I'm the one who's stepping in place. How you do it for a minor, right? How you would do it for a young child.
Right.
Similarly, like let's say if the parents were away in this time, right, but they had to mobilize funds for our siblings. Let's say I may or may not be fully financially independent. In this case, a trust becomes very handy, right? So no matter where we
Right.
are, at least money is made accessible for whatever facility you and I or our siblings might need.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we are aware of the various schemes and like the policies which the government has been coming up, including UDID. But still, there are a lot of gaps when it comes to future planning. either siblings are not even aware of such schemes. So what according to you are the gaps today in India?
I think the first is we're not utilizing the existing services and existing options that are there by the government. But that's probably because they're not being marketed well enough. I know we spoke
Maybe.
about this a few days ago, right? You didn't know, and you're very involved, very educated sibling. So how is it that you didn't know about this option, right? But when
Right.
you think about it, how would you have discovered this? You're not constantly going on the internet and seeing are there any new schemes for your sibling, right? You're not doing that. So I think
Right.
what needs to happen is that these policies that the central government has created needs to be promoted in the right direction. I think that's a very big gap. The the target audience should know that something like this exists for them, which will also show the government that the systems that they're creating are helping people, right? Then that will motivate them to create newer solutions, newer ideas. But right now,
Right.
what's happening is and also I know so many people who say that UDID there's so much fear of it being misused, right? A lot of times people will just apply for a UDID card for like other benefits. So, but I think because of a fear of people getting a disadvantage out of that, you cannot stop promoting it to actually benefit the people it's made for.
Right.
Yeah.
Understand. So, your organization, Reservoir, how can they help special siblings to, start understanding about these tools, and in what way can you help us as special siblings?
I think first, I think you can think of Reservoir as somebody who's gone through the same thing and has made a lot of mistakes. So we probably, for example, when you and I spoke, I think I could understand your situation very well. I can understand what are your concerns and needs. It gives us the opportunity to identify your goals well and then give you a solution that will work for you. The idea is to create something that works for your family, right? For example, as a sibling, we might want to live in different parts of the country. Then are we the best people to become managing trustees, or like are we the correct people to be taking care of our siblings' finances or emergency situations, right? We may not be. So similarly, depending on what your goals are, what your current situation is, Reservoir helps you understand what tools you need and how to use them to your best advantage. So we take a lot of pride in creating very customized letter of intent. Letter of intent is something that comes in addition with a trust, which is not legally binding, but guides the caretaker to how what all is expected from them. So to give you an example, if a new person steps in, if my cousin or a neighbor steps in tomorrow to take care of my brother, who's a well wisher, but they may not necessarily know everything that they might need to know about my brother, right? So in this case, a letter of intent is very useful. It tells them my intention that these are his likes and dislikes, this is his medical background, this is the history that you should be aware of. So how the idea is to enable people who will be stepping in to take care of our siblings, empower them, make their lives as easy as possible so that they can focus on the main task.
Right. So, if someone has to approach Reservoir for their future planning, for their specially able brother or sister's future planning, what is the procedure like? How can they approach you?
I mean, I think we're quite active on all social media channels. We're on
Okay.
Instagram, Facebook. We've also shared our phone numbers in almost all parent communities, all sibling communities. So you can just reach out
They
to us
can
via
directly.
WhatsApp.
Okay.
That is not a difficult part.
Okay.
And then depending on what your goal is, we map you with the correct professional. So maybe if I feel like I am the best person to understand your goals, then I'll talk to you directly, right? Like then I will always be a part of the goal planning part. Then we have a legal advisor who steps in, who says, okay, if these are your goals, these are the legal things that you need to take care of. Then we match you with a financial advisor if need be, right? So whatever professional and beyond legal and financial, like that, I think when you're working on this project, you also come together as a family and think about these things, right? So you also think of more solutions that you'd like to do or options you'd like to find. I know so many people now during this process start thinking about the residential part of this, that where is the child going to stay. So then we walk you through what are the options in your city. We try to connect you with as many people as possible. So the idea is to create a very wholesome environment for the parent and make you feel supported.
Wonderful. So, what are the tips, which you could give to siblings who are preparing for this journey, for different categories, I would say. Let us first start with the younger siblings, like say who are 15 to 20-year-olds. So, what is your tip for them?
Um, okay, this is I have to think about what I would tell myself when I was 15.
Exactly.
I think I would tell myself that it's okay to like put myself first sometimes and not feel guilty about it, even though my parents were constantly telling me that you should do what you want to do. But as a sibling, I think I was always like feeling, oh no, I will be a bad sister if I don't put my brother first. But I think it's important that you do what you need to do for yourself and be really happy, because only then can you be there for your sibling. So I think that's my advice
Right.
to those kiddies. Not because now that I've passed that phase of kids.
Right. Second would be to the slightly like adult siblings, like our age group, 20 to 30, where we are just figuring out our own lives. So, how can we help in the future planning part of it?
I think this is a very crucial stage, right? Because now you're finally taking decisions that will have a long-term impact. So I think it's important that you know the consequences of your actions right now. Be it if you're planning which city that you're going to stay in, what job you're going to take. Um, all of these will now have an impact on the life of your sibling as well. So it's important to, I think, educate yourselves. Everything for our age group, I think the good thing is we're pretty handy with technology. All this information that I spoke about earlier, be it UDID cards, legal guardianships, a lot of this is available on the internet, right? So learn about it, read about it. A lot of it, your instinct will tell you. You don't even need an advisor to come and tell you what to work for. I mean, your instinct will tell you, right? So
Right.
I think once you educate yourself, then you'll also figure out. Then you will be able to have a more informed conversation with the professional that you're working with. You'll be able to ask the right questions. You'll be able to say, no, you know what, this is not working for my family. This is not working for me.
Right.
Especially because parents, when they are planning something for their child, they also have their own reservations. They may not necessarily know the level of involvement you and I are going to have, or at least they don't want to impose it on us, right? It's something that it's very personal to me, but it's very useful for the planning part itself.
Right. Now, for these slightly older siblings, like say who are above 30, a common thing I've heard is that why do we need to do this if we are going to keep our sibling with us? Why do we need to make a will? Why, if it can be on mutual understanding basis. So, how important is it for them? You feel?
It depends on the family structure. I think that's a very tough question. It depends on who else is around you. And for honestly, I think planning is something that needs to be done for an emergency situation. Of course, you're there for your sibling, but what if something happens to you, right?
Right.
Like I think in India especially, we have like this feeling that hame kuch nahi aayega. I think it's the idea is to not take anything for granted. Of course, ideally, like hopefully none of these things will be required. But if they are in the worst case scenario, you should have them accessible and handy. What if you're as a sibling who's the sole caretaker of the person? What if something happens to you? What if you're in the hospital? Who are you going to call? Who are you going to explain to them? I think it's even more important for this age.
Right.
Yeah.
So when UDID came up, there was this confusion initially which people had that you generally go to the local hospital to get a certificate
Yeah.
uh, assessing the intellectual disability. So many siblings have told me that isn't that sufficient? Why do I have to get a UDID for my sister or brother?
Got it.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this?
Look, I think a UDID card is important because it's the first central database that the government is creating for people with disabilities. Now, it's like saying if you already have a PAN card, or I mean, if you already have a PAN card, why was the Aadhaar card introduced, right? It's the benefit
Right.
of having an identity card is limited, but imagine if if the government can't accurately say how many people with different disabilities are there, how can they use new schemes and benefits? Also, for me, I don't even care about the benefits. For me, the most important part of the UDID card is my brother is not carrying his or her disability. My brother is not carrying his disability certificate everywhere, right? So if he tomorrow comes across a stranger who wants to help him out but can't understand him, we think about all of my brother is wearing a kada today, where his name and phone number is written. But imagine the amount of guesswork the person who wants to help him will have to put in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, why can't he speak something? What if my brother is not able to express himself at all? What if somebody doesn't discover that kada, right? But
Yes.
no matter who, like an identity card is something that everybody will look for. Or what if I can just train my brother to use that as a help card, right? It's an official
Right.
central government card that can be used for help. Look, just think of it like that.
Right. Right. So, what was your inspiration, behind entering this field, and how did you start Reservoir?
I've been talking about my inspiration throughout this session. It was obviously my brother, but I think it's more that when every time I would travel with my brother or when I was in New York, I think it's the kind of life that I see he could have had in other parts of the world that I think we're very far away from right now in India. And I wanted to take some steps to at least bridge this gap in my own little way, which can be done through technology, which can be done through the power of social media, which I think is missing in the sense like so many NGOs, so many schools, so many individual people and organizations are doing incredible work. But I think if I can bind them together and unify them and like create the sense of community in our country, the amount of comfort that I have just by having a few siblings around me now is amazing. Right now, it's something that I felt like if I had a few years ago when I was younger, there were so many issues that I would have navigated differently than I did.
Right. Also, I have a question coming in wherein for siblings who plan to get married in the near future, how do they approach this topic of, say, legal guardianship or a trust or a will? Because you have a totally new families coming in with, to share your life.
Yeah.
So, how do you address these concerns they have?
I think here I would say the sibling needs to take full responsibility. Okay. I think it's the sibling's responsibility to talk to the husband, whatever, like future husband,
spouse, yeah,
or wife, whatever, spouse, and the family, and make them understand and be completely transparent with what their situation is. Right? I think complete 100% honesty and transparency is key, and then explain to them what is their involvement going to be in their sibling's life. I also highly recommend that if the sibling is going to live with the both of you at some point, I think the spouse or the partner should be familiar with what he's stepping into. See, we've grown up again, right? The level of attachment that we have for our siblings is amazing, right? Our tolerance level, our patience, our acceptance level is beyond bounds, right? We can't put a tag on that. But for somebody who's new, no matter how much they love them, might not feel the same, right? It'll be a completely different experience. So I think that familiarization process should be considered and taken into account for from the beginning. I hope they can spend some time together, get to know each other, and just set expectations very clearly. I think if you can tell your partner, do you expect anything from them at all? If you do, is the partner comfortable? But give them some space to see if they're comfortable with it or no. And then I think just these are things that will be resolved with time and just patient conversation.
Understand. Lastly, do you want to share any useful links or websites which all our siblings should go through to be more aware and be more proactive in this?
Yes, I think our Sarthi page.
Yes.
But I generally think because Priyanka, I think I'm not sure if the younger ones realize right now that we've gone through the same stuff. A lot of us, we've shared common issues, and even if we've not shared common issues, there's probably nobody else in the world who'd understand them like another sibling would. So for siblings, I think it's important wherever you can find your own network there are some things that only a fellow sibling can understand. And I say this because uh, even though my friends around me when I was younger, even though they had siblings, my life was very different than them. And at a lot of times, there were issues that I couldn't discuss with them openly, right? Which was very important. And apart from that, I think if you're slightly older, I think do check out all of these policies that exist yourself, right? Because if you're, again, if you don't educate yourself, you won't be able to fight for what your sibling deserves. So go to sparklondon.org, right? It's the UDID cards website. Let me put it in the comment here actually so that if anybody wants to see it. It's called
Yeah.
Bun. I think I spelled it right. For UDID. And the legal guardianship is, if you just type legal guardianship, and then
Right.
yourself, see how
Sorry,
things work. Sorry?
you were not audible. The
Right.
last part was missing.
I'm saying read about these tools yourself, see how they'll be useful to you. Because also the UDID card and legal guardianship part is completely online. So as I think you and I are equipped enough to just fill these forms by ourselves without any.
Right. I understand. Thank you so much, Shreya, for your time.
Thanks, Priyanka. All right, bye.
Bye. Bye. So that was a nice brief given by Shreya about UDID, legal guardianship, forming a trust, a will. I think these are very important, and we should not wait for some emergency to start planning these things. So just like Shreya suggested in the comments, we have a few links. So please do go and start educating yourself and taking a proactive role in this. So next, we have another special sibling with us who is going to give us an idea about the residential facilities. So I'm going to add Piyush Mishra to this SIP talk. Piyush, if you can you please send a request to add you?
Hi.
Hi, Piyush.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are
Yeah.
audible. So, being a NIT grad, how did you venture out into disability studies and how has your journey been so far?
So basically, I attended a workshop when I was in second year of my MTech. So I attended a workshop in NIT Jalandhar of regarding autism and technology. And from there, I was like, oh, I'm a sibling and I'm so much into autism. So why not? I should pursue this autism and technology. But as the time moved forward, like I shifted my attention to more social types of problems like future planning or sex education or creating a sibling network. So this is how I like ended up doing disability studies.
I understand. So, can you tell us, like, as a sibling, as even as a special sibling myself, uh, why should I look at residential planning or residential facilities as an important part of future planning?
Yeah, so like as Shreya also said that it will depend upon family to family. Basically, there can be you can live with your sibling. That is very much possible. And but in many cases, it's just not possible due to our siblings' own career or own life. That it's just not possible for them to live with us. So in those cases, like we should see some residential options, whatever is available, so that there is a place where our brother or sister is well taken care of.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what are the different types of residential facilities in our country, and have you been to any of them? What has been your experience?
Yeah, so different types, as in one type, there are one type is campus type, like it's a big campus wherein maybe of 2 or 3 acres, maybe, and therein 50 to 100 residents may be living. I call it campus type. Second type is you can say it's in a normal residential setting only in our colonies or localities. You take a duplex and maybe 6 or 12 residents are living. We can call that as group homes. And and third option is, if it's not necessary that the person with autism or some disability may require much support, he or she can be independent and might require support only for financial things or groceries or stuff like that. So there can be, they can live independently also with some kind of supported supervision. So these are all the possibilities. Yeah.
Okay. So, any few you would want to mention about where you have been to?
Yeah, like I have been to 5 residential centers in North India and one in South India. Most of them are autism specific only. Like my brother is autistic, so that are autism specific. One out of them was a composite, like consisting of autism, CP, intellectual disability, and everything. So my experience was those are very fine residential setups and a really good arrangement. But the thing is, when it comes down to costing, it's just way too costly for a middle class family. Like it's not affordable. So that was my experience, and we need more residential setups as the population is increasing. If I talk only about autism, then there will be from a recent paper of 2018, there will be 13 million autistic adults. Like we definitely need more options. So yeah, this was the overview. Yeah.
Right. So, as a special sibling, if I have to plan for my sister and look out for a residential facility, what are all the aspects I should keep in mind when I have to compare?
Okay. So first thing is, you should first visit the center. Whatever first, basically you should find out what are the centers. A very good place to start just finding the names of residential centers will be a Facebook group known as Forum for Assisted Living Solutions. I'll link it. I'll link it in our Karti page. So they have recently put out a list of 40 residential centers, and first basically know the names, like कि तुम्हारे स्टेट में क्या है, like what is there in your state or other states. Then you visit the center and see if it will fit your sister or not. It is not necessary that if the center is good, that it will also fit your brother or sister. Like you should
Right.
see whether it is compatible or not. So like there are many centers which are way more compatible for people with greater cognitive ability, but for like
Right.
my brother who is severely intellectually disabled, it is not fitting. So this is one point. Second is you should see the proximity to home. Like this is a point. Like many a times parents need that, okay, if the center is near to our home, then it will be helpful for us to visit. So proximity to home is a point. And third one is like you should see what are the day activities of that residential center. Like many times residential centers also have work centers, so you should basically see their timetable, what is they are doing. And then yeah, these are the concerns. And definitely money. So money overshadows everything. So affordability is the main point, and that overshadows everything. So that is the main concern, to be very honest.
Okay. So, as you mentioned, in case of composite facilities,
Yeah.
many siblings have this worry when they have, like, verbal versus non-verbal siblings. How will they adjust? And if suppose our siblings are autistic, there
Yeah.
could be CP, Down syndrome, many other disabilities
Yeah.
who these facilities accommodate.
Yeah.
So, how do we, take care of all this? Like, in case of a residential facility, would you still go ahead?
So actually, it's quite debatable. Like I also had the question when I was reading for future planning, ki whether it should be composite facility or it should be purely autistic or purely Down syndrome, something like that. So in some research work, it has been written that it will be better if it is composite. The reason being that they can complement each other's deficiencies. Like Even one is autistic. Like the thing that happens in special schools, like many of them are composite, and like
Right.
they kind of help each other. What the answer to your question is that yeah, like if it is specifically autistic, it has its own benefits. If it is composite, it also has its own benefits. Whether our brother or sister will fit in or not, that has to be seen over a period of time. Like we have to actually send him or her there and see whether like it is working for him and us both. So that is something we have to test, and we cannot just predict. Like that is what I think. Like,
Right, right. So I think you suggest that we visit these centers with our sibling and see how
yeah,
comfortable they get over time.
yeah.
Right. Also, another small but important aspect is safety, because these kids cannot, especially if there's like I have a sister, so
Yeah,
if I have to leave them in a leave her in a residential
yeah,
facility, I'll think twice because
yeah,
I won't be there.
yeah,
So how is this aspect addressed in all these residential facilities?
yeah.
Did
Like
they
I,
have some way
like
out?
like as of now, there are private facilities and government funded facilities. So I will be talking about private facilities. I haven't visited any government facilities. So like yeah, this is a very valid question, not only for girls but for boys also.
Right,
So
right.
sexual abuse is a big issue, and um, like I don't know personally that how like this issue is taken care of, but what I think is that there should be two kinds of regulation. Even if it's a private facility, there should be two kinds of regulation. One should be the financial regulation, like there should be some capping for the price they charge per month or yearly, and there can be some social security like regulation also from government side. Like there should be a body to check or to inspect all these things, and like we have to find out answers. Like we are still at very nascent stage in India
Nation.
regarding
Okay.
this, so I don't have any. Yeah.
Understand. Uh, Also, some siblings feel that probably their specially able brother or sister should be completely independent if they have to go for such facilities,
Yeah.
or they should be able to take care of themselves. Is that so? Or is it okay if they are still dependent on us? Can we still send them to a residential facility?
So talking from a perspective of being a sibling of like severely intellectually disabled, like my brother Puneet, who is autistic also, what I can say is that the basic stuff like bathing, brushing, toilet training, going to washroom, eating, conveying, like he is non-verbal, but like trying to convey what he wants to say, and many a times trying to convey the medical problems to the extent possible. Definitely, it is also an issue knowing the medical problems for non-verbal kids. So,
Right.
so these are the things which he or she should be independent of. Another aspect is that parents should also kind of train their kids to live without them, like not always with supervision. Like in my home, what we do is like many times Punit is with me. We only are there in the house, and sometimes like mummy or papa have to go to their native place. They go, so I take care. And in Pune school, there is residential camp, summer residential camp. So therein
Okay.
weekly. So therein he has to live for a week without us totally. So that so in that thing, what happens is he gets trained to live without the supervision or the help of family, and it is also a kind of training for the school authorities to like see how to keep them in a residential setup. So it's a win-win situation, and I just hope that special schools make this happen more, like the summer camp things. So yeah.
Right. So, on a closing note, do you have any tips or some links or websites which, as special siblings, we can refer to and like educate ourselves more about residential facilities?
Yeah, so one is the National Trust website. I'll be linking it. So it has got many schemes of respite care centers, residential centers. There are many information out there, and one is, as I mentioned earlier, also Forum for Assisted Living Solutions Facebook group is there. So therein you can find, okay, like these are the residential centers. And third is searching on your cell only, like just go to Google and just type in residential centers, and like I did, the way I did, because this
Very
link was not
helpful.
available. so, so like just go and see, and there are amazing centers out there in India, definitely. But like as I said, that we have a long way to go. We have just started on. So
Right, I understand. Fine. Thank you, Piyush, for your time.
okay, thank you.